Welcome to the Prospecting Today podcast, and today we are talking with Colton Lindsay, who is masterful at prospecting. I hope a lot of you have checked out his YouTube channel. He teaches a lot of wonderful techniques there to get your business just really humming. And I just want to welcome you to the podcast, Colton. And we've talked a little bit about in the past, and I want to kind of bring it up again. You talk about mindset, getting yourself in the place where you need to be to really kill it in this business. What do you mean by that?
Well, everything revolves around our beliefs, psychological and emotional. So here's what I found is you can make a lot of money in real estate if you just become obsessed with getting on the phones, getting on the doors, setting appointments, getting great at your listing presentation, getting contracts signed. But just because you're getting a bunch of contracts signed and making a lot of money doesn't mean you're going to be fulfilled along the journey. What I want to be able to help people is, okay, let's make the money, let's manage the cash flow, create financial freedom, but let's enjoy the process. When, for example, if I ask you time equals what, fill in the blank, what do most people say? Time equals what?
Money.
Money, right? That's what everyone thinks. And the reality is time equals emotion. Each moment that passes, we're experiencing some sort of emotion. What I found out for real estate agents, especially those that follow traditional real estate coaching, is they'll be obsessed with prospecting and setting appointments, but it's all fear-based. It's all, am I going to be able to get enough money next month? Or what a lot of successful realtors do is, can I keep it going? Can I keep from losing the money that I've earned or that I've made, that I've created? And so you've got to be able to make that shift from being fear-based to being excited and being addicted to your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to take you to the very beginning. How did you get started, and what was the one thing you did that led to it finally clicking for you, where you could really be like, hey, I've got this. I can do this business. I've figured it out.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I've ever really figured it out. I think one of the key things is I'm curious and I'm persistent. So I got in October 2005. This was when the market was hot and I had no idea what was going on. New construction was on fire. And my first 10 months only sold 2 houses. I failed miserably. And then a couple things happened that began to shift my mind quickly. One is I went to an education event it was a Fearless Agent special event. I worked with that company for years. And then I learned, you know what, I have to start calling people. People are not going to call me because I didn't get that concept. I was young. I didn't get it. I didn't know what I was doing. So then I started calling people, but I didn't really commit to calling on a high level till I called the top 3 agents in my market, and I took them to lunch. And actually only one of the 3 said they would go to lunch with me. This guy named Gerald Ivey. He, big Mike Ferry agent, still does a ton of FSBO and expires to this day. And I said, what are you doing differently than everyone else in our marketplace? And he says, I get to the office, I call at 7:30, and I call till 1:30 in the afternoon. I get up to go pee and drink some water, but that's it. And then I go on my appointments in the afternoon and the evening. And so that's what I started doing. I just started calling not just 1 or 2 hours a day, but 4 or 5 hours a day. And with time, my skill set got better. And then I had an idea in 2010. Well, what if I started, because this is when YouTube started really coming popular. Well, before it started coming popular at the time, I said, why don't I record myself doing live prospecting calls? Then buyers and sellers will love me, and they'll want to do more business with me. Turns out real estate agents love me, but buyers and sellers didn't care, which leads me to where we're at today. So early on, I didn't have I didn't know anything else except for to make phone calls.
Yeah. And so I'm curious about that. So even during the slumping years, the really tough real estate years, 08, 09, even 2010, 2011, you weren't losing your mojo in terms of I've got to keep at this. I'm not doing what I want.
For me, it was actually an advantage because I saw people that were making a ton of money before then get out of the business. They lost everything because they make the same mistake every realtor makes. They start making more money than they're used to, and they get obsessed with liabilities versus assets. And see, they're part of that fear-based driven goes. The market drops down, their expenses are high, and they are just commission breath all over the place. But for me, I didn't have anything to lose. So each year, my business got better and better until 2002. I think I listed and sold 42 for sale by owners in 1 year. And I think I did 50 something deals that year. And what I learned is that if I stayed persistent at the foundations of calling people, setting 5 or more appointments every week, I'd end up on 3 or 4 of them. And my skill set, I got to listing 80% of them. So then I would just turn that market. But here's the mistake I did make early on is I was so fear-based, I was turning through clients and I wasn't nurturing them to create long-term relationships. And I started shifting that about 2013, 2014 to where today I won't do any for sell by owners, but 80% of my business comes from my database, my sphere of influence, my past clients, or what I call my people farm, people thinking about buying or selling over the next couple of years. But we still call them every single day.
Yeah, it's so impressive that you stuck with it. But how did you go about nurturing them? What did you do when you finally woke up to, hey, I need to also care about referrals down the road? What
Yeah.
changed and how did you start to nurture these
Well, the
clients?
first thing that changed for me is I just was getting burnt out of working with for sale by owners. You look at a FSBO and an expired, they are now money, but it's a lot of time, effort, and energy, and they're always, pulling some new banana sandwich on you, and you have to meet at weird times. And I just didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to become the owner of my business and not the operator all the time. So as I started to make that shift, I said, well, I need to obviously use marketing dollars. And traditionally, most coaching companies, in the last 20 years, we didn't spend money on marketing. It was all about prospecting. It was maybe since Tom Ferry came around with his company, started growing, and said, hey, no, let's start spending money on marketing. And then with Keller Williams, the MREA book, we started seeing more of the money spent towards marketing. And I said, well, if I'm going to spend money on marketing, I'm going to spend it on the people that actually help me get my business where I'm at, my clients. And obviously a great favorite book for everyone to read is Raving Fans. And I realized that there were two types of customers. One, we gave amazing freaking customer service to, but they still had a horrible experience. And then some, for whatever reason, I delivered very horrible customer service, and they still had an amazing experience, and they were my best referral sources. So I thought, you know what, maybe it's not so much about the service that I provide, but the experience that I create for these people. So we started creating our marketing plan around 3 different areas of customers: before they become our customer, while they're our customer, and after they become our customer. And we said, what experience can we give these people in these different portions or different segments of our network? And we just started tailoring things to give them a great experience. And that's the main focus. How can I give people an amazing experience?
I like that you say that because a lot of people say it's about amazing customer service, but everybody kind of has the idea of how to do an amazing customer service. And so that's not going to set you apart. What is the experience versus the
Right.
customer service? What is the experience to you? And then I would be curious after you answer that, what is that experience like for before they're a client, while they're a client, and after they're a client, like the 3 stages you set them up
Yep.
in?
Yeah. So I look at it, first of all, identifying who's my target market. Today, most of my clients are between 25 and 45 years of age. I've learned that mostly like that 50 to 65, they don't want to work with me in my team. We're younger millennials. Well, I'm kind of an older millennial, but my team's younger millennials. We don't dress in suit and ties. I did early on in my career, but it's like t-shirt and jeans. It's like, we got tattoos on our arms, but we're really great people, right? And so I've learned that I had to identify my target market first. And then I had to look at, okay, well, if that's my target market, what do they like to do? I'm in Utah, and we have a lot of families here. So I said, you know what? I want to give their family an experience. And so here's an example. We're doing a Black Island Farm. It's a fall harvest festival here in a couple of weeks. We'll have 500 past clients, friends, people there at that event. And it's like $8 a person. But you think, in Utah, usually people have like 3 or 4 kids, sometimes 5 kids. To get their whole family out to one of those events to then get food, it's like $100, right? So it's like, what if we could give them a fun night, a fun experience where they could just go be them and not worry about how they're going to have to pay for it or how they're going to have to deal with it. Does that make sense? And so we started creating these different areas of what our customers liked. And, one of the things we'll do with some of my other friends that are just an adult party, we'll do like just a cocktail party at my office. We'll bring in some adult beverages. We'll bring in a couple of catering items, and people just hang out and we'll play some music and just get to network and hang out with people. So I also started to discover that there's one element that people were really interested in with me is this part of financial freedom. Now, how do you manage cash flow? Realtors, my clients, everyone, because most people are taught when we start making our first $150,000, we're not taught how to manage that cash flow to create assets. We're taught how to buy liabilities. For whatever reason, I became obsessed with creating financial freedom, and I learned that there's 6 foundations or fundamentals to do that. So oftentimes I'll just shoot videos, little tidbits out to my database and hold little classes on how to help people create financial freedom in their lives. So I just started to identify what did people want versus what did I want, and I started giving it to them, mixed with what I could add value with, right? Because I'm not going to be who I'm not I had to give them who I am. And then here's what happens. You do that, you attract people that you want in your network. You attract people you want in your tribe.
When you start to create this experience, because I've heard a lot of realtors talk about creating experiences versus great customer service, I've heard that the key thing to do is in surveying your customers, you need to find the information that follows this sentence. Colton is a great realtor, but did you ever find yourself like
I've never
talking
heard
to
this.
them? Yeah, it's just something that I came across in some of my research that I thought was really interesting, because everyone might be, he's great, but is there a but there, and does anything follow after that? And then that helps them really sculpt their customer experience.
So here's what we do. After every closing that we have someone on my team, and I only started this about 4 years ago, someone that will call and get a customer feedback from each transaction that we do. And one of the questions that we ask, hey, rank your experience on a scale of 1 to 10 and be completely transparent. Okay, and then they'll give us the number, say it's an 8 or whatever. Then the follow-up question is, say, hey, what would it take to make that a 10? And be completely honest. If there's something we sucked at, let us know so we can play at a bigger level for our future customers. That's probably the biggest place where that's that but that we get from our customers. But we do that on every transaction. Every file, we're calling, we're following up, and we're finding out what did they love. We do more of that. And what were the one things that came up that they just didn't like? What we found is a lot of times, though, it's like things that were out of our control, but it was how could we have communicated it even better? How could we have given them information in a way that managed their state of emotions to keep them calm and cool through the process? Because it's a highly stressful scenario, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a lot of realtors, and listening to you, would really be interested in knowing, give us your day. What is your day like, Colton? How do you structure it? What leads to the most success?
Sure. And before I just go over that real quick, I want to say about prospecting. Your whole platform is based on prospecting. The biggest mistake that realtors are making, that prospecting is just calling FSBOs and expireds and cold calling. That's not the case. Like when you call after a closed transaction and you have that script to go through and get their feedback, that's a prospecting call. Because the last question we have on there, who else do you have that we should have on our radar that's thinking of making a move over the next year or so? So we're drawing referrals out from our active customers. When we look at 80% of our deals are from past clients, sphere of influence, and our people farm, 20 to 25% of those come from our active customers by focusing on them. So don't think it's just cold calling. It's FSBOs, it's expireds. Get creative and have conversations with people so you can draw out those referrals. When I look at my day, I break it into 3 parts: a morning routine, a daytime routine, and an evening routine. And I look at each one of those routines and I ask myself, what emotional experience do I want? For the longest time, if you guys are like me, I would wake up and I would start to think about the shit I needed to get done. And so I would go to my email very first and I would start to look at the problems I needed to solve. And I just realized I wasn't having any peace in my life. So now I switch it. I want peace in my life. So right away, the first thing I do is I ask myself, what are the 3 things that made me smile or laugh in the last 24 hours? I write them down. And I spend 60 seconds replaying those experiences in my mind, because I'm training my mind to look for times where I'm laughing and I'm smiling and I'm happy throughout my day. Second part is I go into my cold plunge. So I go sit in 47 degrees water for about 4 minutes, and it causes me to really get control of my mind and focus in that moment. Plus, it just feels great on the inflammation and in my body in general. I move into about 15 minutes of breath work, and these are the rituals in my morning routine now. Move into 15 minutes of breath work, and then about 20 minutes of meditation and or like Tai Chi or yoga stretching or something like that. Then I get my health and nutrition ready for the day, which is typically a green smoothie, wheatgrass, Udo's oil, stuff like that. And then I do my Millionaire Mindset Journal. So I do about a 30-minute activity of writing 10 things I'm grateful for. I write down my financial target 10 times, and then I write down about 25 power declarations like, I love my life. Money comes to me easily and frequently. I naturally attract better and better customers. Whatever it is, like my declarations is for that day. And then I do my SMART day or my RPM. This is really, really important. One of the most important rituals of my life. It's where I spend 15 to 30 minutes creating my outcomes. What are the 3 to 5 major outcomes I want for this day? Why are they important for me? And what are the 3 to 5 actions that if I do those, it's going to absolutely create that outcome? Because what happens, gang, is we start to focus on our task list. And if you know this, you get to the end of the day and there's always more shit to get done. But did those items drive you purposely to the outcome in your business, in your finances, and in your happiness level? And then after that, I look into, okay, I need to go get into business. And there's an emotional state we all want in business. So the morning time is peace, is tranquility. Then I crank it up to enthusiasm and excitement. When I get to the office, it's all about absolute fucking certainty. Am I going to drive revenue into my business or not? And if I am, what are the key activities that I know for absolute certain will drive me into the uncertainty of business? In all business, it's the same. I got to generate customers. I got to generate people to work with. Now, depending on what level you're at in your business, most of the time it means getting on the phone and setting appointments. If you're a real estate agent, your focus is simple. Set 5 appointments, go on 3 and sign 1 to 2 of those every single week. You'll do 50 to 75 deals every single year. But as you evolve, if you want to stay as an agent, keep calling. But if you want to evolve and become an owner of a business, you can't do the phone calling forever. You've got to start networking on a higher level. And that's where I'm at today. Is I'm doing these podcasts. I'm flying out to meet with Danny Morell and collaborating on something. I'm doing a webinar with Ricky Carruth later this week. I'm doing things with other people to drive our current business. Does that make sense? You got to identify where you're at. Afternoons for me is usually where I'm doing either my coaching calls or I'm doing something with different types of appointments with my clients. So morning time for me is content creation now. Afternoons are appointments with customers or clients or people like that. And then midday, though, this is something I do every day, 12:30 to 2:30. I go to the gym. I either do a weightlifting session or a plyometric session. I do sprints and I do cardio. And then I hit 20 to 25 minutes of meditation in the steam room and visualizing my business, training my brain to see. See, here's what happens is we get so busy doing stuff in real estate, we forget to sit down and visualize the pathway and create the vision of the future for us. Then in the afternoon, it's about relaxation. It's about connection. It's about celebrating. It's about feeling the victories of my life. So I identify what are the activities for me that do that. Oftentimes I'll go to hot yoga. If I have my daughters, then I'm going to do things with them where I'm fully present at their dance practice, or we're going to the park, or we're reading a book, or we're going on a walk. But I'm creating activities that allow me to feel connected, to allow me to celebrate, to allow me to feel the victory of my day and my life, and that allow me to really feel that fulfillment of what I'm driving towards in my business and my life. And then I usually finish off with a cold plunge, and the next morning I create some new outcomes. That's it.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm kind of curious if you've ever videotaped your morning routine, because that is one of the more interesting morning routines I've ever heard.
I have not, but I should. I should get my camera guy and say, hey, come over. Let's go through this. Let's video it.
Yeah, I think people would be very interested in seeing those step by step, all those things you're doing to put yourself in the right mindset to really crush it that day. Because I've interviewed a lot of people, and like I said, your morning routine is very unique. And it sounds like it really sets the pace for your day.
Listen, we're going to die one day. Between now and then, what emotional experience do I want? I don't care how big my business is, how much money I make, although that's important because it gives me experiences. Who fucking cares if I'm miserable every step of the way, right? Here's the thing, and you show up, you go to a mega camp or a family reunion at Keller Williams, or you go to a Mike Ferry production retreat, you show up, and guess what starts happening after 5 o'clock? Everyone's at the bar, everyone's drinking, everyone's getting fucking hammered because of the level of stress that real estate agents are living in today. All you have to do is take a look at our industry, and I bet you 25 to 40% are alcoholics, drug addicts, or really unhealthy with their nutrition and their diet, because their key emotions are stress, are frustration, are irritation, are impatience, and they're always on their fucking cell phones. So they don't take the time to slow down, feel the peace, feel the tranquility, and look at how freaking awesome life is. And that's what I'm passionate about, is helping people find that excitement and that passion and that happiness in life.
How long did it take you in the course of your real estate career to get to a place where you could own your schedule like that versus having it run you?
To own my schedule was quickly, but to own my schedule where I mastered it around my emotions probably took me about 11 years because I just wasn't aware of it. to really master I believe there's two ways of doing your schedule. Well, three ways. One is where you're reactive, right? You're just reacting to everything, which 90% of realtors are in. Then there's the other places where it's called time management. People are scheduling their priorities. Now, I would say the top 3% of realtors operate business this way, and they'll make a lot of money doing it. They're time blocking. They're really key on what they're doing when they're doing it. Here's where most realtors get stuck if they get to that point, though. They are always time blocking around work and around money and around success. They're not time blocking around peace and tranquility and connection with the people in their lives. So I would say maybe 0.5% get to that point where it's about their emotions and not about the money and the success. And when you can get to that point, the money and the success just happens. Like people, just like our conversation, like you reached out to me probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 times trying to get me on this podcast. And that's very normal for my business schedule now, is people constantly wanting to say, hey, come be on my podcast, or can you do this, or can we collaborate on that? And if it fits into my filter, awesome. If not, then I really, I don't get back to them right away. And it's because I've consciously created an emotional awareness of my life and my experience. And that took me probably 11 years of business and a lot of failures and a lot of like making money to understand it wasn't the money that I was truly after.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Are you able to unplug and completely do your own thing on the weekends? Like, is this your Monday through Friday schedule, or are you finding that you're still doing real estate 7 days a week?
No. I probably work personally 3 to 3.5 days a week, and 3.5, 4 days a week, I'm not doing any real estate. I might do podcasts, or I might do like a webinar here and there, but for the most part, I'm nowhere on that. Like, it looks like I'm there 25 hours a day, 9 days a week because of the content we put out. But that's all strategically put out there with team members and creating content ahead of time.
How long did it take you to build up a team where it was kind of where your business could run itself without you being physically present 24/7?
When I made the decision to do that, when I could allow my belief to shift that I didn't need control over everything, but that I could trust the universe, I could trust the systems, that happened probably 2014 is when I started saying, okay, I need to do something different. I spent 3 weeks in Brazil at the World Cup, had a bunch of closings, but when I came back, I had nothing new really pending. That's when I began to shift and make different decisions. Then it was probably 2016, 2017, where I started feeling comfortable, where I could step out. And then from there, it's accelerated to where 2018, like I recognized the end of 2017, I was in the wrong relationship with my marriage. So I got out of that relationship. And during about 90 days in the middle of 2018, I didn't work at all. I showed up at the office maybe 3 or 4 times and still made as much money as I did the rest of the year during that time frame, because I had put the right people, the right systems, the right leadership in place, that it wasn't about just making me money. It was about the vision of the company.
Well, I imagine that took years and years of hard work to build a pipeline that could continue to move forward along with the team that you talk about, but to build that pipeline where you could take a step back for 90 days and not take a hit.
Yeah, well, I think everything's about creating the deals every day, whether it's a real estate deal or whether it's an investment deal or whether it's now creating new clients into our academy. It's about creating a lead funnel, a lead flow. And so what really got it for me in my real estate business is simple, is when I would close a deal, I began to create an amazing experience. Like we talked about that earlier. I would create an amazing experience for them going forward. And then it started clicking, well, what if I created that experience for the people before they met me? What if I create the experience while they're working with me? And so that would probably be the key indicator in creating the leverage over time, was the experience factor. I made it about creating an experience for my customers.
So you keep your customers engaged through a great customer experience. How do you keep your team engaged? Because I think the team being engaged also helps to create a great customer engagement experience. So how does the team stay consistently engaged in what you're doing so that those customers feel that as well?
Right. Well, number one, it's all in the hiring process. You've got to hire people that are hungry for success. And for whatever reason, hunger to me is that thing that you can't teach. Either people rip it open in themselves or they don't. And if they don't, I don't really know how to help those people, truthfully. I don't know how to ignite it for them. But for those that have the hunger, I can help ignite it for them through the examples that I've created. And like, just like you're like, wow, your morning routine, what are the results from that? What are the things like when we want to create a specific outcome in our life, we look at the model that's created that, and we look at someone that has those physical results. We duplicate it. We apply it into our lives. So I've attracted people into my company that believe in my vision, and my job is to keep the vision bigger than the business, because if there's not something to grow into, then these people are going to outgrow it and go somewhere else. Does that make sense? So I got to keep the vision that big that they want to grow with the vision. And there's 3 areas, at least in the real estate industry, everyone that I've noticed, and I've come up from my own life, is that they want increase with. One is increased business. They want that increased cash flow. They want the ability to expand. Second is they want to be able to create financial freedom. Everyone that's in real estate, they've heard of passive or residual income, but for some reason, realtors actually aren't taught how to have it. You go to a Mike Ferry event or maybe a Tom Ferry event or even a Keller Williams event, they're not teaching cash flow management. In fact, I think that's the biggest detrimental. Even though Mike has done so much for our industry to lead with the coaching and the training and to help people get deals, he's taught fear-based. Go buy a new Porsche, go buy a new this, and then work your ass off to make payments on it. The reality is most realtors, like I said, they make 150, 250 grand a year. They didn't grow up like that. So they don't know how to spend that money. Next thing you know, they're obsessing over just trying to pay the bills, and they're physically affected by it. That's why they have a terrible diet. That's why they're smoking weed. That's why they're taking Oxycontin. That's why they're drinking alcohol. And if you don't believe me that this is a problem, literally just go to these events. I get probably 1 to 2 agents a week reach out to me saying, hey, listen, I'm taking 3 to 5 Oxycontin a day right now. Like, I don't know what to do. It's gotten a hold of me. That's how common this is in our industry. But what I believe is if you can manage your cash flow, it will relieve the stress in your life to where money now works hard for you. So you have to obsess over assets. But then the third area where I've realized people want to grow is they just want to be fulfilled. They want to be happy. They want to feel self-worth. They want to have self-value. And so that's what I've created a model for in my organization for people to grow in. Now, I mean, I look at 23, 24-year-old kids that work with me now, and they've got $30,000 to $50,000 in the bank. It's like, I didn't have that money at that age because I didn't know how, I was making 6 figures, but I didn't know how to manage my cash flow. Does that make sense? And so it's just creating that vision for them to grow in those 3 areas of business, finances, and personal fulfillment.
That's amazing. So what is managing your cash flow, if you can just sum it up in 1 or 2 lines? Is it basically spend less than you bring in?
So, no, not necessarily. I mean, that is an obvious answer, but the biggest thing is if you can't manage $1, you're never going to manage $1 million. So think of us as a filter. Money's going to flow through us. Question is, where is it flowing to? Most people don't know. And in fact, the worst thing I hear from realtors, well, I'm investing it back into my business. Well, how much profit did you have? Well, I don't have much because I invested it back in my business. Then that's not investing. That's poor spending. That's just poor managing of your expenses. First step is, and a great book to read is called Profit First, okay? An amazing book. But the idea is take your profit first. Take the idea of the richest man in Babylon and pay yourself first, whatever that percentage is. Put that money aside first. So what I teach in our mastermind with the WGR Academy is you need 7 different accounts. Here's another common thing with realtors with money. Guess what they're always doing? They're either 2, 3, 4 years behind on their taxes, or they're always extending to October to file their taxes. And so they've got the number 1 worst creditor on their back, which is the United States government and the state government. Horrible amounts of stress come from this. And if you're living life that way, it's going to just compound with time and crush your fulfillment level. So I teach people, number 1 is pay yourself first. Number 2 is put money aside for your, I call it country donations. And then the other 5 accounts, they help grow your expenses, but they also help grow and fund your life, whether it's go to Costa Rica for 3 weeks, or whether it's restore an old vehicle, or maybe it's like my friend Brian, he wanted to buy a Lamborghini, right? Like we all have these different things and goals. But if you manage into these 7 different accounts, as money flows through you, you filter it, it'll naturally fill up these accounts, and then you'll spend it with confidence and certainty versus fear and uncertainty.
Wow, that's incredible. You're the Dave Ramsey of real estate agents.
Dave Ramsey teaches you, hey, listen, I love Dave, but he teaches people to be middle class. I want to teach realtors to be financially free, where they work because they choose to, not because they have to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been incredible. I love that you joined us and that you shared these things with our podcast listeners. What is the one thing that you would share with real estate agents? If there was one thing that you could tell them and you're talking to thousands of them, what is the one thing you would tell them?
Believe in yourself. Your job is not convince people to do business with you, it's to convince them that you're convinced you deserve it. The moment that you believe in yourself, you increase your self-worth, your self-confidence, your self-value, you will naturally fall into opportunity.
Yeah, I love it. And I think the biggest takeaway from something you've said about prospecting is the biggest mistake you made was you did not nurture your clients to get those referrals early on. And
Exactly.
so is that the number one thing you would tell people as they're getting started in the business, if they're falling flat prospecting, if they don't think they're making what they need to make, versus like just structure their business in a way that it can be sustainable? But is that really the biggest mistake you'd say watch out for?
For sure. There's now business and then there's long-term business. And if you get really skilled, not everyone can go get FSBOs and expires, but there's an aggressive, like select few out there who can go do it and they can make a lot of money fast, but don't fall into the trap of just doing that. So get the now money, do the open houses, call the FSBOs, call the expireds, but really focus on building a network. And I call it attraction-based marketing. One is build a network, people that know you, like you, love you, trust you, or at least know your name and are thinking of buying and selling real estate. Two is have a message you're going to deliver to those people. For example, with my brand, the WGR, whether it's real estate or with our academy, it's all about making a difference. How can I make a difference for myself, for my organization, for my customers, for my community? I don't care about the money aspect. The money's going to come, but how can I go make a difference? And then the third piece is, how do I deliver that message repetitively? And in today's world with technology, there's no reason why you can't be following people around on their iPhones because you've got the ability to do that with if you keep your database the correct way.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else you'd like to wrap up with, Colton, that we haven't touched on?
Yeah, stop asking what you want from life and start asking what life wants from you. The moment you do that, that's when all the doors will be open.
Give me an example of that. How does that apply to you?
Here's some examples. Too many people are building their business on what they can get out of it. What vehicle can I get? What vacation can I go on? What can this do for me and for my family? And the reality of it is God has given each one of us talents and abilities and gifts. Harness those gifts, give them to other people obsessively. So what is your purpose here? Why do you even exist? Like, think about this. We're floating on a planet in the middle of fucking outer space with 7.5 billion people, close enough to the sun. We're not freezing, but far enough away we're not melting. Are you fucking kidding me? There is a reason behind it, but why are you here? Who are you? What's your purpose? Discover that.
Yeah, very cool. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time. I appreciate you being on the podcast. And just to
Absolutely.
wrap up, how can people find you?
Uh, Instagram's the best place right now, at the WGR, but you literally Google the WGR. You'll find me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram.
Wonderful. Thank you again for joining us, Colton.
Thank you.